The internet is full of videos of things you shouldn't try at home, and it's kind of my mission to redress that balance and fill it with things you should try at home. The reason I do this job is because I learned to make stuff by just having a go for nearly 50 years, and that turns out to be a really good way of getting good at making things. People are scared to do stuff like this because it feels daunting to not know what you're doing, but the only way to develop that judgment is to dive in and do the thing. So watch this, and then go get some ingredients and tools and get going. I'm starting the video with the cakes already baked. Someday I'll make you a baking video, but for now, just pick a recipe that comes out reasonably sturdy, not too squishy or spongy. I recommend a butter recipe over an oil one because although oil recipes taste divine, they don't set at room temperature the way the butter ones do. So they end up a bit squishy for stacking or sculpting. I also mixed some buttercream frosting off camera. Any recipe's fine as long as it's thick enough to hold its shape solidly. To be perfectly honest, I'm quite slapdash and my cake and frosting come out different every time. Sometimes I nail it, sometimes I don't. It's always at least edible. No one ever actually complains. Aiming for a stacked 3-tier cake, I baked 2 layers at 8 inches, 2 at 6 inches, and 1 tall one at 4 inches, intending to cut it in half. Do whatever you've got the tins for, but do think about the finished proportions of your cake here. A cake, like an outfit or a hairstyle, will have a silhouette, and that will be the main first impression maker. So think about that when you bake, and make sure you have enough height. Too much height is not a problem, because you can trim it off, as I'm about to do. I start by gluing 1 layer down with frosting to the base and then use my turntable and a bread knife to cut the domed bit off as flat and level as possible. You can use the same technique to cut the layers into 2 sub-layers if you want, and sometimes I do that because frosting is delicious and the more the better, and sometimes I don't because I'm lazy. I also cut the top off the second layer and then use a generous amount of frosting to stick the 2 layers together top to top, so the nicely square and unwonky bottom of the layer forms the top edge of the tier. Whatever treatment you're going to give that edge, it's easier to start with something as uniform and regular as possible. For this cake, I wanted the layers to be a little bit flared, bigger at the top than at the bottom. Happily, the layers had shrunk as they'd cooled in a way that lent itself to that. So I just had to trim the bottom layer a bit with a bread knife, doing it in stages, trying to get a fairly smooth and even slant. It doesn't have to be perfect. The crumb coat of frosting that you're going to put on it will cover a multitude of lumpy sins. I also wanted a wavy top edge to each tier, so that was going to need a bit of sculpting. First, I scribed the base of the next layer up to make sure that I left that area flat. And then I cut out just a little sliver from one place and inverted it next to its place of origin, gluing it down with a little bit of frosting. This carving and shaping takes some practice, and you may well screw it up the first time you do it. But then the consequence of that is that you have to make more cake. And that's not a bad consequence, as consequences go. So once the bottom tier was shaped, I just finished crumb coating it as smooth as I could easily make it and stuck it in the fridge to set. All the subsequent layers get the same treatment. Here, have a montage. All these offcuts can get dumped into the excess frosting and mashed up into what is unequivocally the most delicious substance known to man. Seriously, making cakes is the most efficient route to popularity that I know of. I use sugar paste on these cakes to make the outside smooth, and I don't use it because it's tasty or because it's easy, but because it makes a lovely smooth base for painting and piping and sticking on decorative bits. It's a bit like a sugar clay, and working with it takes a bit of getting used to. Some intrepid people make their own, but I buy it at the supermarket. It comes in a block and it's very short. When you open it, it breaks easily into sandy-looking chunks, so you have to knead it like bread dough to get it smooth and stretchy and pliable. I use some vegetable fat on my hands and on the table, and also dust with corn flour using a duster made out of an old t-shirt to help it not stick. I don't use too much corn flour though because it'll dry out the sugar paste. I knead it for ages, checking occasionally whether it still goes sandy when I stretch it. I keep going until it's really pliable and stretches without breaking. At that point, I roll it out to the size of the cake diameter plus twice the cake depth, and carefully lift it and drape it on top of the cake. If the cake is really dry on the outside, the sugar paste might not stick super well to the frosting, which can make it hard to smooth it down. If that's the case, I often use a tiny spritz bottle of water and very slightly dampen the outside of the cake first to make it a tiny bit sticky. Smoothing a flat sheet of icing over a shapy cake takes a lot of frustrating practice to get good at. I'm sorry, again, that you're gonna have to make a lot of cakes. Oh no. You have to smooth it gently over all the surfaces from the top down, gently shaping around all the wavy edges and lifting and encouraging it to reshape itself all down the side without letting it fold over itself or stretch too much, but also not panicking if you do stretch it too much because you can patch it by ripping a chunk off the edge. And also you can just not worry about it because painting and piping and decorating will help camouflage all your mistakes. If you're very fussed about smoothness, you can use a smoothing tool, but you can also get a pretty good finish using your hands if you're not too fussy. I'm like just fussy enough to use a smoothing tool, but not fussy enough to care about the little flaws. I like the little flaws. I don't want it to look like it was injection molded in plastic. I trimmed the bottom edge and put aside the offcuts to get mixed in and used on the next tier. I think I used 2 kilograms of paste on this cake and it was about right. When you're trimming the last bits off the last tier, you should save them and roll them out and test your painting and piping on them. And then throw it away because it really isn't that nice to eat. So yeah, I did the second layer just like the first and then set it carefully on top. If I was doing a massive heavy cake, I'd put some dowel struts in the lower layers to help carry the weight of the upper layers. Unless it's a really small cake, my individual tiers are usually on these cardboard bases to help structurally. You can buy these or you can just make them out of clean cardboard and tinfoil. And you don't really need them, and you definitely don't need the struts if your cake isn't very big and or if it is very solid. I don't fuss over much about the tidiness of the join between the layers because I'm going to cover that bit with icing anyway. Except that I did fuss a bit and decided that the plate under the top layer was annoyingly too big and got rid of it. The top layer really doesn't need one anyway, probably. So the cake's all stacked, and I usually give it a spin and check that it's all level and straight, which it never is, and I've learned to just lean into that and enjoy the whimsical flare it lends to the finished look. And yeah, look, the next day in full daylight, you can really see that I'm not that fussy about the finish. Partly that's because I'm not good at getting it really smooth, and partly it's because my style is very busy and fussy and rococo, so that level of perfection just isn't necessary. For the painting, I use a variety of edible pigments and luster dusts. Whatever I can find available near me. I don't really have a favorite, they're all pretty similar. I mix them with a bit of gin into a smooth paste and then paint them on with clean paintbrushes. You have to be a bit careful painting because you can't really go over any wet, already painted bits without smearing the white sugar paste up to the surface. So there's a knack to doing it in one pass and getting it rightish the first time. Practice on the rolled out leftover icing to get the hang of it before you start. And also relax because you can dry brush on some more color or metallic luster dust after the first coat is dry. In general, I think it works really well to layer up a bunch of colors and generally keep it all a bit messy and complicated looking. If you assault the eye with enough fussy exuberance, the tiny imperfections just get lost in the noise. These big architectural frilly bits here are made from gum paste. Gum paste is just sugar paste with gum tragacanth added to make it more pliable and stronger so you can model it more finely. It's what people use to make those super realistic flowers. In preparation for this bit, I used a tiny bit of the gum paste and a little water to make the glue for sticking the bits on. I also used a clean, slightly damp tea towel for storing the block of gum paste while I was working with it because it can dry out really fast and go crusty otherwise. If possible, aim to use a whole packet because you can't really store it for very long. But if you have lots left over, you can make some freestanding decorations for next time and store them in an airtight container between paper towels. So I make these little doodads by kneading a marble-sized chunk of gum paste and then rolling it into a little worm, much as a child would with some Play-Doh. But I make it a little thinner in some places than others and curl it round on the board and shape the ends with my fingers by squashing it a bit. I can then pick it up and use a little bit of glue to stick it onto the cake. And then I repeat that process for the next hour or two. I'm not worrying about the symmetry here, I'm just trying to flow them together in a way that looks, flowy. Some bits look awesome and some bits I hope no one will notice because they're looking the awesome bits. When I'm done with that, I mix some gold luster dust and some gin and paint them all gold. This takes ages to do well, and I have to use the turntable to turn it every which way and make sure that I'm not leaving too many white strips visible. And yep, I always miss some bits. If you can be bothered, it's easier if the gum paste color matched the intended finish color approximately, but I never know what I'm going to do with color until I'm actually doing it, so I always use white. After the first coat's dried a bit, I usually add a little highlight of a brighter gold or a pearly white on the high points just to make it look a little fussier. The aesthetic I'm aiming for is bonkers rococo, so the fussier the better. And to that end, I'm going to mix some royal icing and pipe some more detail on. I take an egg white and I put a little lemon juice in it because acid helps stabilize whipped egg whites, and then just enough icing sugar to make it sort of creamy looking. Then I beat it till it's almost forming peaks and add a little bit of icing sugar at a time and beat it a whole lot in between, through the gloopy almost holding its shape stage, and between the little bits of more sugar and the lots more beating, take it to the properly holding its shape stage. It's better to get it to hold its shape through beating rather than through just adding loads of sugar, because if it's too thick with sugar, it's really hard to pipe. If it's the whipped egg white that's making it stiff and plenty of air, it'll pipe really easily and still hold its shape and dry to a sort of crispy lightness. I chose quite a fine piping tip and spooned all the icing into the piping bag and had a little practice on the kitchen surface before I let loose on the cake. I'm just adding rows of tiny pearls to the edges of the curly bits, and then switching to a bigger tip and putting a row of pearls around the join between the tiers. These came out kind of sloppy. I should really have added a bit more sugar and beat the royal icing a bit longer. I guess I'm a little out of practice. Those big pearls need quite a while to dry before I can paint them, so I killed time by adding some little candy pearls. Stuck them on by denting the icing slightly and gluing them in with the gum paste glue. And then I piped some more little decorative doodads on the other bluer fields. All this effort at differentiation would have been more effective if I'd used less similar background colors in the first place, but the little doodads dry really fast, so I painted them gold and then got impatient and painted the big pearls silver after not quite letting them dry enough. Oops. I painted the tiny pearls with a pearly white, slightly iridescent luster, and I wish I'd done that to the big pearls, seeing how dark and muddy the gray silver ended up looking. I pretty much always have a few little oh well moments like that. To make the ropes, I used the rest of the gum paste. I coated my hands and the countertop in a tiny bit of vegetable fat and rolled out a maybe grape-sized piece of paste into a long snake, making it as long and thin as I could manage. Using the smoothing tool helps to keep it uniform along its length. Then I folded it in half and rolled the two halves together to make a twisted rope, and put it around the base of the cake. Obviously, I couldn't make a rope in one long piece long enough to drape all over the cake, so it's made in sections and spliced together as discreetly as possible. Another thing gum paste is really good at is being rolled very thin, so it makes an almost fabric-y appearance. When I do this, I tend to powder the surface in luster dust to help it not stick so much and peel it up and reposition it every roll, because I have to lean really hard on it to get it as thin as possible. I use pieces of the fabric to make the tassels. I found these crazy multi-scissors in a junk shop, but you can do this carefully with a knife as well. Just cut a series of thin strips and then trim it and roll it up. You can add a sort of sheath around the top if you like. I used these to strategically hide the uglier rope splices, draping it over the edge and messing with it until it looked rakishly disheveled. I had a little brass cup which I used as the cake topper. I stuffed the bowl with a bit of tissue just to take up some volume and then draped a piece of the rolled out gum paste fabric in it to just look a bit luxurious, which it absolutely did. I finished it all off with a little more rope and another tassel, touched up the paintwork here and there, and there you have it. It was 2 days' work and a normal number of screw-ups and bad design decisions, but you know what? Literally no one even mentioned the flaws. A couple of people even said that they didn't want to cut into something so beautiful, but you know what? I actually like that about Sugarcraft. To put a lot of time and effort into something which is very ephemeral, designed to be destroyed almost as soon as it's completed, I love that. It really acknowledges the greater importance of process over product. I enjoy making things far more than I enjoy having to find a place to put them forever. I do feel like I need to acknowledge my inspiration and cake hero, Margaret Braun, whose spatula I am too lowly to clean, but whose work, when I saw it, launched my nascent Sugarcraft ambitions to new and ridiculous heights. I'll link to her website below. She really is the one true master of this art. And I do hope I have helped you maybe be a little bit inspired and that you will try this at home, because you absolutely can do it, and even if you make a cake wreck, it'll taste good, and honestly, your friends and family will not mind if you keep practicing on them. And please do send me pictures of what you make. Kind of especially if you make a cake wreck.